Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm really grateful for everyone joining us today and for having Kara. I think this is going to be an awesome session. This is our Missing Chapters series, and Missing Chapters is all about, untold stories, things that you maybe don't get in the handbook. In if you went to school to be an HR, if you learned it as you went, either way, there's just a lot of things that aren't discussed when you're told like this is your JD in HR. And so Missing Chapters is really about just digging into those things and hearing from HR leaders and getting their perspectives. So really excited for today. My name's Amy Frampton. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Nava, and I've been here just over a year, just hit my 1 year anniversary. I'm thrilled to be at Nava where we can have these conversations and welcome great guests like Kara.
Thank you. Well, Amy, I'm so excited to be here. I'm Kara. I am currently the Chief People Officer at Sightly. Sightly is an ad tech company that has built AI-based tech that makes it possible to connect brands to culture, news, and media in real time. So it's helping companies to drive better marketing and advertising performance. And I was just telling Amy on the call before, this is a brand new sector for me. So, and I just joined them this month. So I'm very excited about this opportunity to lead their people team, but also learn about a completely new space. I've never done ad tech, so I'm excited about it.
Well, we should do another call where I share with you thoughts about marketers have about ad tech. We can go back and forth.
I'm down. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, excited to talk about this important topic. It's like, what does the topic of employee well-being miss on self-care and just kind of making sure HR is okay? I've seen so much of this lately. Gosh, before Nav, I was at Bamboo HR, and I feel like I've just been seeing a lot of is HR okay? And how do we think about that? So to dive in, um, let's start with you've worked at big corporate environments, you've worked at startups. What's the difference, and how do you think as people look at both, how are they thinking about self-care when they're actually in HR? Feels like HR is always taking care of the rest of us.
Yeah, yeah, and that's entirely true. And to your question, doesn't matter if you're in corporate or at startups. I feel like a lot of times the question, "Hey, is HR okay?" Like, no, there's so many areas where we're not because we're not supported the way that maybe we need to be supported. And I know that when we had talked about coming into this chat, we had talked about emotional resilience and what that looks like. And I appreciate having both corporate and startups in my background. And I'm sure there's people on this call that are either coming just from corporate, just from startups, or maybe do have both. And in corporate, things are just bigger, right? It's a usually bigger company, a larger focus on presence and representing an HR team. But there's bigger budgets. There's sometimes bigger issues. There's bigger layoffs, right? You have these bigger things, but it's also very frustrating, right? A lot of red tape. You can't get things done fast. A lot of rules that you have to follow. And then at startups, you're looking at things being like really scrappy. How do we get things done faster and better with less things, like smaller, right? Having to be creative, having to think out of the box, what's new. And so it's definitely different stressors that come from both corporate and startups, but at the same time, it's a lot of the same things that are coming out of that, right? Like I'm always thinking, okay, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right track? Am I supporting the employees the way that I need to support them? Am I protecting the company? Am I doing the right thing for my team? Am I being a great leader? Am I a good teammate? There's just all these questions that, whether you're coming from corporate or startup, you're going to have. And so responding to stressful situations is the same. It doesn't matter if you're in corporate or startups, that emotional resilience that you need to have is truly the same for all of us. And Amy, I'm really excited to go deeper into this conversation because I think throughout this conversation there's going to be a lot of things from my side, maybe things that you've seen, or if the chat is working, I would love for people to engage in the chat and also share. Because that's one of the important things with an HR community when we are in these situations and people are like, is HR okay? It's like, okay, I'm not okay. I'm reaching out to my people. Like, I feel safe on this call, right? I'm with my people, and you need to be able to talk about those stressors with your community. And so, yes, corporate and startups, definitely different perspectives, but it's still the same stressors and the same things that we're worried about and feel.
That makes great sense. I appreciate the perspective because I think that's true for all of us that there's stressors across both, but it feels like when you're the people, that weight kind of can follow you no matter the size. When's the first time you remember kind of feeling that emotional weight the most? When was that moment where you're like, oh yeah.
I mean, so the first time I ever felt it was really, it was my first job. It was in corporate and it was in 2007, 2008. I was working for Morgan Stanley in New York and I joined and then we basically had to, it was the financial downturn and we had to go through layoffs. And I was just shocked at how, like, you go into HR and you're expected to do these things, and it's just like, oh, it's part of the job. You run a layoff. And having to do that was so emotionally taxing, and feeling that weight was crazy. And back in 2007, 2008, there really wasn't a lot of support for when you go through something like that. How do you support yourself after? And then that was the first time I felt it, but the heaviest I have felt it, and it's around the same thing, which was layoffs, was COVID. And so at the company I was at during COVID, we had to do a layoff and it was fully remote. So we had all gone home. It was, over 100 people in the company, and me and my small HRBP team had to figure out how to do layoffs in a remote setting. We had never been remote before. We had never done a layoff remote before. We reached out to the VC firms, and they were like, "Hey, you're one of the first companies to do this. We think other companies are going to have to, but we don't really have a lot of guidance." And I had to lay off half of my team
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was so emotionally heavy, and the fact that I didn't have a lot of people to lean on or VC firms to lean on, and it felt so lonely. And in that moment it was just I didn't know how to I was like, I don't even know how to handle this. I was reaching out to my team and I'm just like, yeah, what are you guys going through? Because this is a lot. Um, and so we ended up like journaling together. And I'll talk about journaling, I think, probably through this conversation, but saying, okay, how do we compartmentalize what we're going through right now? And how do we make sure that we are just doing the best that we know how in
Mhm.
this moment? And then after we're done, be able to talk with each other about how we're feeling and be there for each other. But that was an extremely emotional thing. And I'm sure other people on this call have gone through layoffs, or your first time going through a layoff. It's very emotional and it's very taxing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's we all as humans, right, are learning as we go. And it sounds like you reached out to other firms, you tried to get the knowledge and then just had to go. And I it strikes me that in HR that happens a lot. Like people expect you to know everything, and nobody knows everything. Nobody's done everything in their lives, in this space. And how do you balance that? Like people expecting you to know everything, yet kind of acknowledging you're human, you can't know everything. Um,
Oh,
that
yeah.
balance.
We make jokes about it all the time, especially when I'm with other people. It's like, oh, what do you mean? I don't have all the answers. Of course I do. Isn't that my job? Like
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
all the answers.
I know all the
Um,
things. Yeah.
all the things. I have certainly become a de facto expert on so much over the last years. And I'm sure there are a lot of people on this call. I think it would be really interesting to see if you want to throw in the chat what you have become a de facto. expert on over the last few years. But for me, it was like when COVID hit, it was like, okay, what is COVID? How do we test? When we test, when do people come back? Like, do we move our desks around? Like, how do we do the office space? How do we set up office space now? Now I'm an office space expert. Then I'm a work from home expert. Then I'm a remote expert. Now I'm a return to work expert. What's the best? What's the data saying? And now politics. Do we talk about politics in the workplace? Do we not? How do we talk about them? I'm an HR person. Am I supposed to facilitate that or not? DEI. Do we scale it back? What do we do? What do we comply with or not? Right? The natural disasters that just happened in California. I wasn't at a company at that time, but a lot of my peers, it's like they had to become an expert in, okay, how do we deal with natural disasters? How do I deal with like our company disappearing from a fire or our people losing homes, right? And it all comes to us. There's nobody else in the organization that really even raises their hand and takes that on. And we're kind of that de facto person. So they just look to us and it's like, all right, Kara, what do you think? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And so a lot of times I want to just fake it till I make it. And I know that a lot of us have done that, but really in these times, it's just, look, I can have a conversation around this, but I don't know everything. I am not an expert in this, but let me gather all the information right now. I want to reach out to my people network, see what other people are doing, and then I want to come back. Um, and I just think like that's the best way to deal with people expecting you to be a de facto expert on everything. It's really just don't fake it till you make it. Really say, I have not dealt with this before. I would like to reach out to my network, give me a moment, and then come back to it.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. It's Heather wrote a great comment. She said that the job of HR is truly a mentally taxing role. We're seen as the problem solvers all day, as well as letting people go as a riff or termination takes a toll for sure. You mentioned journaling, but as you know, there's so many emotionally heavy topics. Um, how do you personally process that? Is that journaling plus, kind of how do you think through that? What advice
Yeah.
can we
Um,
learn from how you do that?
the one thing that I'll start with here, and I'm sure this goes for everyone on the call, um, most people have high emotional intelligence. We are empaths. We feel deeply, we care a lot, and it truly is. It's what makes us good at what we do. It's what makes us good at our job, is having all those things. But having all those things can also be detrimental to getting through like really tough crises and employee issues. Because we feel so deep and we are empathetic and we have all that. And so the biggest things here are, and we talked about this at the top of the call, you need a network of people around you. So when I first started in HR, I reached out to the VC firm that was associated with our company because I wasn't like a chief people officer. I wasn't a big head of people, but I still needed people around me because I was making big decisions for the organization. So you can still try to find a network that works for you. There's also in most cities, there are chapters of different HR groups that meet in Austin. I know we have a few. And I used to be part of one that met in person. Now I am part of a couple groups where it's people leaders or chief people officers. So your group doesn't always have to be the same. I have always changed mine and dependent on where I am within my work
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm. Sure.
You just find the right group, and if there is not one, start one. So when I first moved to Austin, I had my New York groups. I moved to Austin, I didn't have anyone. And I randomly met someone at an event that was another HR person. I was like, let's go to lunch. And who else do you know? And so it ended up being this group of five of us that would randomly get together like monthly or whatever it was. And we even started our own little group. So if you don't have a group or you can't find one, just start one on your own and find people. So that's one of the biggest things. And then yes, journaling. And so I had started journaling, and I don't journal. I'm not very good at journaling feelings. I know a lot of people are, and that is one way to journal. I journal in like I put things into compartments to compartmentalize what I'm going through, and then say, okay, here are the things in this compartment. I need to just take a pause on that. I don't want to completely shut it off, but sometimes I need to take a pause on it to be able to get through what I need to get through. Um, and then after something happens, like if something big happens within an organization, I journal and I do like a reflection. And I know a lot of people call them postmortems or, looking at things after something is done. I like to call them reflections. And because I like to think of it more of like a journaling experience and reflecting on what we went through, have everyone on the team reflect as well, and then come together and share together as a team. If I don't have a team, I take that and I share it with my manager, which is usually the CEO, just so I can get it out there, so I can just tell someone how I'm feeling or what I went through or what it looks like to be in my position, because a lot of
Mhm.
people don't know, right?
What has their reactions been? Like if you say to a CEO, "Hey, here's my reflections," right? Which I like a lot better than postmortem,
Yeah.
um, which is
Yes.
such a, I don't know, odd term or yucky term. What are their reactions when you share that?
It truly depends on the person and the CEO. And I usually deliver it the first time just the way that I would deliver it. And then I gauge reaction and then switch the way I deliver going forward. And just because somebody's not receptive the first time does not mean I stop, because
Mhm.
I still think it's really important for other people to understand what we go through as HR folks, because truly they do not know. We do a lot of the difficult things. We carry a lot on our backs, and we need to verbalize that because a lot of people just don't know. So I have had some CEOs react in a really amazing way, like, "Wow, I didn't even know this," or "I didn't know. I just thought like." You do your job and that's it. And it's like, well, no, here's what
Easy peasy,
happens.
right? Yeah.
Right. Here's what happens when I have to
Yeah.
let someone go, right? Like these are the feelings that I have. I'm professional, but
Yeah.
so this other like not a robot. Um, and so I encourage my teams to share. And then I encourage when I mentor other people, leaders, or people starting to become people leaders, I'm like, this is so important to share what you go through and your experience. And so that other people just know that they just understand, right? Because if
Mhm.
not, if you're not telling people, then you stay in this container and you're just like, no one understands me. Like this is awful. And it's like, well, maybe no one understands because you're not telling them, right? You don't have to
Right,
be,
right.
and you don't have to be aggressive about it. It's just sharing. It's like, hey, I did this reflection. Here's what I went through. Here's how I'm feeling right now. I just want to let you know. Like this is how this works and this is how I go through it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's awesome. I love it.
yeah.
Let's talk about burnout. Talk about another term that's a hard term. Let's talk
Yeah.
about burnout and early signs of burnout. And then we got a great question from Sonia in the Q&A around kind of how do you figure out when to say no? How do you learn to actually say no to avoid burnout? And so let's talk about burnout. What a fun topic.
Oh my gosh. I
Or a
mean,
real topic, right?
I say, I think you can have your own session on burnout.
Yeah, it's
So,
true. True.
what's really fascinating about burnout, and I did this exercise a couple companies ago, and I had my team in a room, and I was basically, I said, do not Google, but what is burnout? Tell
Mm.
me what burnout is. And then I did it for a leadership team as well. I said, like, don't Google it. What is burnout? Everyone's talking about burnout. What is it? Everyone has something different to say. If you actually Google it, it's all different as well. There's websites say it differently. Google, even when it comes up on it's like AI, it's different than it. Burnout is very personalized. And so to truly understand when someone is like burning out or feels burnout, you really need to understand what that means to them. And so, and again, like I don't know if other people have experienced this as well, or if you've had people come up to you at work and say, like, hey, I'm burning out. Like, what's your response? You have to say, well, tell me what's going on, right? And then
Mhm.
usually everyone's answer, excuse me, is different. We all have different signs of burnout. So my sign of burnout, or if I'm starting to get like burnt out on something, I am getting irritable and I complain to my partner. And when I'm noticing those things, I'm like, okay, something's going wrong. And I need to like evaluate what is happening. I also check in with myself if I am finding joy in the work that I do. And where that comes from is I read a book years ago. I think it's called The Chief Joy Officer. I could be getting it wrong, but the book exists. One of my CEOs gave it to me once and might have been like a few years ago. And I read it and I was just like, wow, like the head of people brings joy into an organization. We do have to do hard things and those things are elevated in terms of our emotions, right? Those take so much of our emotional tax, those really difficult things. But it's like there are so many joyful things and great things that we do. And how do we amplify those? We're not amplifying them. We got to call them out more. We got to show them off more. We got to be really excited about them. And I evaluate myself when I'm like, okay, I'm feeling irritable, I'm complainy. Am I still getting joy out of what I'm doing? And if it's like, I'm missing a little bit of that joy, it's like, okay, where's that coming from? Why is it happening? And let's have conversations, right? Let me have a conversation with my manager, with the CEO, whomever, and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I need to get to the bottom of it and see what's going on. But I don't want this to get to a point where like I throw my hands up. And like if you've ever had someone on your team or if you've ever felt like, I need to tell my manager I need next week off.
Yeah.
Or in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks, I need a week. I need a week to decompress and just stop. Once you've gotten to that point, you're too far. You've
Mhm.
gotten too far. And so you have to start recognizing the signs within yourself. So you have to like self-reflect and say, okay, here are my signs. Here's what burnout is to me. And then if you are leading a team, have those conversations with your team. Or when I start at new companies, if I take on a team, some of my first one-on-ones with them are like, okay, tell me what motivates you. Tell me what does not motivate you. Tell me what like, yeah, what does burnout look like to you? What does that feel like? Do you know what that feels like? And what are those warning signs? So you can say like, oh, when like Amy, it seems like, she's not as productive as usual. Usually when her productivity starts going down, that's a little bit of disengagement, and I feel like she's getting to like a burnout state. For someone else, it might be like, yeah, she's super irritable, like not wanting to do things. Someone doesn't want to hop on video, whatever it may be. Like you might find all these like different things within different people. Um, and there was something recently that I saw. I have never done this, but I'd love to tell you all about it because I think it's like really interesting to use. Um, I recently read something where a manager met with all of their teammates and they made a matrix of the work that they were doing and had it fall underneath different buckets. And so it was put all the things that you love doing, all the things that you're good at, and then all the things you're not good at. And then everything that you do, put them into one of those buckets. And then if you see that you're working on all the things that you are not good at, which usually means that you might not like doing that thing because you're not good at it. And if it's leaning more towards that area, then you're going to get towards that burnout that you're working on these things that you don't want to work on. So I thought that that was a really interesting exercise, and being able to do that with an entire team other people like things that other people don't, or people are good at things that other people are not good at. And so how can we
Love
switch
that.
that within our team? And how
Hmm.
so to like work on this like burnout thing with each other and getting to a little bit more even on doing the things that we like to do and finding that joy and that passion. Now saying no to things to not create burnout, that is more of just like I am doing too much. There is too much on my plate. There is too much going on. You need to start saying no to things. And so the one thing that I do now all the time is I make a roadmap. And so if you do not have an HR or people roadmap, whether you're the leader of your people team or you are just a people person on the team, I would advocate for a roadmap, or you can even make your own for yourself, right? And say, okay, these are the most important things that we need to work on at this time. And if all of these things start trickling in of we need to do this, we need to do that, it's like, no, we have this roadmap. It was approved by leadership, right? Bring it to the leadership meeting, have it approved by the CEO. And then if you want to add something else in, we need to take something out. It's no different than engineering and product. right? They can hold tightly to their roadmaps, and when someone asks them to do something extra, they say, that's not in the roadmap, but here's how we could fit it in, and here's what I would have to stop doing to do this thing. So the one thing that HR and people has never that they've never really been that great at. Again, we're empathetic people. We want to help everyone. We want to do all the things. We've never been good at like, no, this is what we decided to do. And this is what we have to stick to be successful. And if you're asking me to do this other thing, I have to shift something else around. Or else then we're taking on way too much and we're going to have turnover on my team. We're not going to be able to support the organization the way we want to support it. And these other things are not going to be successful because we're going to be focusing on way too many things, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm,
We're getting a lot of questions about roadmaps and how do you build a roadmap, the format of a
Mhm.
roadmap? Do you have an example of a roadmap? I'd love for you just to walk through kind of, so it's, I don't know when you would start, September, October, June, July for the next year, maybe. But you're in February 2025. How do you step back and do that? I'd love just to hear more about that. I know people listening would too. So I'm seeing lots
yes,
of questions.
yes. And so the way that, and this one too, how do you address this if leadership does not respond to
Yeah.
share that boundary? Yeah. And look, like the what I do is for a roadmap, I do it quarterly. Because things with people change so much. You cannot do you could have like a high level roadmap, right? Because you know when you're going to do your compensation, you know when you're going to do reviews, you
Right.
know when you're going to do certain things. And you can put that into your roadmap and then you work backwards and say this is all the work we have to do to get to that thing. And so you put those high level things in for the year. But then quarterly, you need to have your own the your quarterly roadmap of the things that are the most important things to focus on in that quarter. You do also, because we are supporting the organization in things that just like come up, you do have to leave space. And this is something that we're not good at either. We have all these projects to work on, but we don't leave space for keeping the lights on and supporting employees. And that just has to be space that lives there and takes up a specific amount of time. Now, what I usually do on teams, and it's tedious, but when I'm starting on a team, I do have my, especially my HRBPs, put down every issue that they deal with. And we usually do it over a quarter. So we have an Excel sheet and we're putting every issue and we're putting how much time it takes for those issues. And we label them like green, yellow, red, right? Green was just like this quick little thing that I had to do. Red, it could take multiple days. Maybe it was like an investigation, things like that. So then we have this idea of in a quarter, we usually get X amount of things that take X amount of days or this hours or whatever. And so we have to block off X amount of time to be able to just do our like HR support work. And we have to keep that free. You have to protect that time. And that's one thing that if leadership ever says like, well, that seems like a little egregious or I don't agree with that, you can't, I would never share the Excel file, but I would like take some things out and then share that with them and say, this is where the organization is at this moment. And as a
Mhm.
leader of this organization, you have to recognize that and recognize that we need this time, right? Then to get leadership buy-in on the rest of your roadmap, it's polling leadership too and saying what are the things that you think are the most important things that the HR team, the people team need to do this year to you? What are the most important things? Where do you see that we're not doing something? And you ask the leadership team that. And so then when you come back and you say, okay, we have Q1 figured out. Here's what we're going to be focusing on Q1. Here are the things that are probably going to be Q2, Q3, Q4 moved out. Here are the things that are maybe next year. But a lot of these are coming from you. And on the leadership team, 5 of you said you wanted us to focus on leveling the organization. So we are going to start doing that this quarter. And that is how I have found that you get that leadership buy-in rather than just bringing a roadmap to them. You start with that poll of what do you think we should be
Mhm. Mhm.
but then you're able to insert the things that you know as an HR professional, we just have to do. We have to
Yeah,
put these things into place. And so you slip those in, but you still have those big things that the leaders believe are the most important.
I love that. One thing I'd love to think about, so we talked a little bit about leadership buy-in, and I think for all of us that maybe work in more people-driven or more qualitative, like I don't want to say sales is easy because sales is hard, but at least with sales as a sales leader, you can say, here's the numbers, right? And this is
Right.
we've all set a goal and this is where we are against it, right? It's a lot more concrete. And marketing has some of that, but I think marketing has some that's not, and I think HR has a lot that's not as well, of like getting that leadership buy-in on like these are our goals. And I understand it's not increase sales X% or do this exact thing, but these are things that we need to do to move the brand, the company, our humans that we care about forward
Yeah.
in a productive way. What role does leadership play in that? I mean, obviously buy-in, and we've talked about that, but in terms of execution of that, and also other organizations, like who should folks be looping in to make sure that this roadmap is not only bought in, but then is able to roll in a way that feels like everyone is moving together.
I, great question and thoughts around this because I have tried to do roadmaps at multiple organizations and I have failed and succeeded and failed. And a lot of it has to do with getting that buy-in from leadership and making them feel like they're part of the process. And the first people that I ever talked to when I wanted to start building a roadmap was product. So it was a product team, it was product folks, and I said, yeah, how do you think about building a roadmap and how do you get buy-in? And they were basically like, it's a lot of communication. So if we are adding something to the product roadmap, there has to be a lot of communication with the people that are saying what they want, right? Because you have the customer success team that is saying, hey, we have customers screaming about this specific thing. We need to have this on the roadmap. And then marketing is saying something different. And then engineering has all of the things that they want to say, right? And then there's like maybe HR even wants like, them to fix like the website or something for the career page. There's all these different things. So
Oh, we
what
always hear about the career page, Kara.
yeah,
Always.
it's a big deal.
I know it is. I
It
should
always gets
know.
put down at the bottom of products
I know.
roadmaps,
We
and
just
it's
redid
always
ours.
so
We just
upsetting.
redid ours.
I actually took an engineering course one year because I was just so upset that I couldn't get. I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to take an engineering class. I'm going to learn how to get on here and change the website because we need it changed. I failed miserably. It wasn't that great, but it was a good experience.
I think it's good learning. I will say we just redid our careers page. So
Yeah,
off the hot seat
it
on
really
that
is
one.
important. So yes, it really is just constantly communicating with the people who feel like their thing on your roadmap is the most important. And so these teams and a lot of this can be like though like when people are like, oh, I don't like playing politics in the workplace. I don't like that. And it's like, I got you. I don't like it either, but you have to do it. There are certain times where it has to be done. And so this was like that product person that was like, look, like you have to operate this way for this to work and to get buy-in and to keep people moving forward with you. You have to continuously communicate. You have to make sure that the people that feel like their thing is the most important, that they are getting the responses that they need, that they're getting the updates that they want and need, and that you're bringing them in. If someone does bring something else to the table, you loop them in, right? So someone else brings something, says, product team, we really need this done. Product team says, hey, CS, your thing is so important. It's so important to us. This other person brought this thing in. Do you see how important that is to the business? Do you mind if we work on that first and we just put this off for a couple weeks? Right? Instead of saying, hey, CS, you got pushed out 2 weeks because we're doing this now, right? So it's all about that. And again, it is a little bit of like workplace politicking And but it really is just like finding the right words to make people feel like they're important and they're still involved in the things that they find important in your specific roadmap. And then bringing them along for the ride, having updates. Don't come out with a roadmap and then don't update. Like I try to update almost every week, or if I'm in a leadership meeting, I'll update on the roadmap, just like product and engineering does. Treat it like they treat their roadmap. It is your Bible. It is what you are how you are saying yes and no to different things. And you have to be on board with that too, and okay with it as well, and excited about it. Yes, I
Yeah,
always try to tell others choose your words wisely. Yes. And especially in our roles, choosing our words, very important. Very, very important.
yeah, agree. And you use the word communicate, choose your words, and make sure people are updated, brought along. I used to have a leader that said enroll, which I always really liked and have kind of picked up.
Mhm.
Like, how are people enrolled in what we're doing? Because it's similar in marketing. You've got to make sure people are aware and enrolled and moving in the right direction and all of those pieces. Obviously, different work, but that sort of communication is big. Let's talk about communication. And I know you recommend certifications in a lot of cases. I don't know if maybe it's more coaching for communication, but share kind of what you think HR leaders should be doing to, get that external help.
Mhm. Yeah, so because you mentioned certifications, I do just want to say I do not have any certification from any HR um, organization. And when people ask me, do I feel like they are important or do I think people should have them? I think it's a very specific to each person. But I do not feel like when I see a role posted that says they want like SHRM on there, I'm like, why? What's making the difference there? So something that I do think moves the needle and makes a difference, and that I do have in my background is a coaching certificate. And if anyone on this call has been thinking, yeah, I want to get better at something, or I want to go back to school for something within the HR field, or I've been thinking about getting a certificate in something, I cannot recommend getting a coaching certificate more. And I think now, when I got it, the certificates were only available, and there are coaching organizations that give out certificates as well. I think now you can go back and get an associate's degree. You might be able to get,
Cool.
yeah, I think there's different options now, which is awesome. It shows how much the coaching landscape has changed. But one of the biggest things and like a moment for me was like truly, you don't know how bad of a listener you are until you go through a coaching course on deep and active listening. I always people are always like, Carrie, you're such a good listener. And I'm like, I know, because I give you space and I let you say the things and I answer back thoughtfully and I listen and I listen well. No, it's like when you are coaching and you are trying to navigate difficult conversations, being able to listen at that deeper level and go through the coaching on that, game changing. And it changed the way that I was able to um, have like employee relation interactions, right? If there is like an issue that came up, or having to do something with two employees in a room and making sure that the mediation was going well, right? I was able to do a little bit more like coaching on that. Our roles now, especially if we report into the CEO, we do kind of de facto become a coach for our CEO, and having to have really tough
Definitely
um,
true. Yep.
conversations. And just having that coaching background and those areas of like, okay, how do I really listen? How do I dig deeper? How do I really get to the bottom of what this person is trying to say to me? Um, Coaching just, I mean, completely changed how I operate in my role, and how I deal with difficult conversations, and how I coach employees through different things. So that is one that I am all for. I bang down the door when people ask me like, yeah, what can I do? And I'm like, coaching. Go,
Coaching.
amazing place to spend your money and to educate yourself.
I think that's yeah, I that that to me is just like the pro tip of the of the webinar because I do think I think no matter what our roles, coaching and learning to listen well is important. Um Even as you're talking about it, I thought, oh, am I listening? Am I, am I
Yeah.
in, am I really hearing? But I can only imagine that for people that it's all the more important.
Well, here's the thing, and I actually just did it right now. If you watch my body language, and I just caught myself. When somebody is saying something, you come up with a response in your head right away, and then you want to say the response. And a lot of times people cut each other off, right? Because they want to get their thing in, they want to say the thing, and then everyone just says their thing, and the conversation actually doesn't go anywhere because no one's taking the moment to dive a little bit deeper, to ask more clarifying questions. And not just clarifying questions, right? Like in recruiting, we have clarifying questions to like
Sure.
dig a little bit deeper. But with coaching, you're really listening to those words that people are saying, and then you're digging in there, and you come away with more actionable items because like you were quiet for a minute, you're not thinking about your response, and then when it's time to respond, you give a second, which is awkward, and people
Mhm.
don't like silence. But I can say, Amy, let me just look at my notes really quick, and I'm going to answer you in 1 second because I was listening to you. And so I don't have a response right away. I need to actually put my response together because I
Oh my
wasn't putting it.
gosh, this is something I can work on. I just did it.
Yes. And so when you're actually doing it and going through the training, it is just like you recognize and you're like, I thought I was a great listener. And it's like, wow, I really wasn't. Or sometimes like if you have a therapist, you're wondering like how they like get you to aha moments on your own. It's very strategic coaching to get someone because you want to tell, like, I want to tell people like this is my recommendation, or like, oh God, I've been in your shoes before. Here's what I did. But that's not helpful because you have to get to your own aha moment. And to get there, you need someone to really listen, pull it out of you, ask the questions. And then once you get to that aha moment yourself, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, you are amazing. How did you get me there? Right? Like that's, and that's what it is. And so
Love
that's,
it.
I mean, coaching is just phenomenal. And I mean, just, and get books. Like if you don't want to go through coaching, there are books on it that you can get, or if it is, it's not cheap, right? You have to pay for it. Maybe your company can pay for it if they give you any dollars to spend on your education. Um, but there's also things like Amy, I know that we talked about before hopping on this call, we have talked about difficult conversations and crucial conversations. And coaching has really helped me to have difficult conversations. But before that, there's this book called Crucial Conversations. Make
Great
sure
book.
you read that. If
Yeah.
you are uncomfortable, especially anyone on this call, if you are uncomfortable having a difficult conversation as an HR professional, you that's something you need to work on right away. So buy the book Crucial Conversations. It's a little bit older, but it gives you a framework on how to start because the worst is starting. The worst is starting a difficult conversation. How do I start the conversation? How do I level the playing field? How am I going to make this a good conversation? And crucial conversations can really help you get there. Or radical candor. That's another great one that I recommend to people. But if you're not going to go through a coaching program, just find those things, right? If you want to get better at listening, buy, I think there's like listening books called like coactive listening, or
Mhm.
I'm sure I could
Active
find some on my
Conversations
shelf
is a good one.
over here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Radical Candor, what I loved that book. And what I really took away from it is, so I've been accused earlier in my career, I was accused of being too nice when I was at Microsoft. They said, you are too nice. And I hope I haven't gone in the other way. You try to obviously find your own path. And I actually think that being kind is can help you move forward as a company. And I told them that when they gave me that feedback at Microsoft. But the thing I really took away from Radical Candor was clear is kind,
Yeah.
and that actually having those conversations is actually the kindest thing you can do.
I, you know, I agree. And I am on the side of, um, and again, it's like choosing your words correctly. That is kindness.
Yes.
And I have a friend, and he's in sales, and he has a sales company now, and he came out with a book. So many people are writing books now, but he wrote a book called I think it's like Kind Folks Finish First. And he wrote it because he, as a sales leader, was very kind. And sales leaders usually are not that profile. And so he was exited from a few of his companies because people were like, hey, you're not, yeah, you're too kind, right?
Yeah.
But then he's basically like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to build my own company. And he did it being kind and doing like the kind thing. And so he wrote this book, like, Kind Folks Finish First.
They do. I remember trying to say, these three projects worked because the people and I did them together and were kind to each other and sure pushed each other. But anyway, that's my therapy session. We won't do that. And yes, Christina will absolutely send out these books post call for sure. Hey, I can't, time goes so fast on these calls, but I'd love to kind of circle back to making sure as an HR professional that you have what you need um, to, take care of yourself, be empathetic. And the two questions that come to mind, the first is, there's this saying about everyone needs to bring their whole selves to work. How does that affect what the HR professional could and should be doing? And then what should HR leaders be asking for in the workplace? I think buy-in on the roadmap is a big thing, right? But
Mhm.
what should you be asking for? Should people go away and be saying, I'm going to do these things and then I'm going to ask for other things? What's your take there?
Yeah. So the first part, bringing your true self to work. I'm a huge fan of bringing your true self to work, whether that's like a movement or what, over the last like 10 years, just slowly trickling in of being able to bring your true self to work and really meaning like you don't have to be a different person. Like when I started off in my career, I was a different person at work than I was at home because I had my work self and my self. And that is starting to mesh more together because just we feel like you need to bring yourself to work. And if you're having a bad day, you should be able to tell people you're having a bad day and maybe someone can support you, right? Like we just went off on a little like therapy tangent session,
You
and that was
did.
really helpful because you brought your true self and you said the things that needed to be said. Um, and there was, as an HR leader, I truly feel that people should not have to hide certain things that they're going through personally. And I had to do that. And most recently had to do it. It was 4 years ago when I was first told that I had melanoma. I was told that I had cancer, and I didn't tell anyone at work. And I was scared that if I told people at work, they would think differently of me. And that affected me at work and bringing myself to work because I didn't want that to be a part of who I was at work and people to think that I was less than or couldn't do something because of something that was going on in my life, right? Now I've gotten past that and I've had to go through like treatment and I've had to do all these things. Cancer is a part of who I am. And if I when I was interviewing, I led with that. I was like, I am a person who has survived cancer and it might still be an issue in my life going forward. And I need you to know that. And if someone was like, then I'm like, okay, I don't need to work with you, right? You want to be able to bring your whole self and your true self,
Mhm.
even if it is a little bit emotional or if it is
Mhm.
like a big thing. And so I'm a huge proponent and fan, and HR needs to be the advocate for that and the advocate to the leadership team of like, yes, people should be talking about this and it shouldn't be divisive. Like we shouldn't be causing fights for people talking about certain things, but people should be able to do that and have self-expression,
Mhm.
right? And like I have a friend who like I think it was like 10 years ago and she had purple hair and she was like, I can't get a job, or like your tattoos were showing. And now it's just like, no, bring yourself to work.
Not care.
Be,
Yeah.
be, be who you are, and that is just lovely. And but HR people again need to support this and need to advocate for it and talk about how important it is for companies to be able to do that because then there's that belonging piece and
Yeah,
people feel like they belong, and that's huge for a culture. You want
it
that.
is. Yeah, and we don't have to all be the same to belong, right? And Debbie just has a great comment. She said, where she works her first position, she felt she wanted them to know that her husband was dealing with cancer and that they
Mm,
were wonderful. And I do think it tells you a lot about where you're interviewing when you're that open,
yeah.
right? And you can kind of say, well, gosh, it's the way you reacted means I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
I don't really care if it means you don't want to hire me. It means I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
Um, I was telling when we were prepping for this call, I had a hot flash in the middle of a meeting with a bunch of men in New York, and they were all maybe 30. And this is this year at Nava, and they're all amazing. But I felt totally safe and comfortable. I was like, so everyone's being super polite. I understand I'm sweating. I'm having a hot flash. Someday, many of your partners will go through this. And so I'm going to go get myself together and then I'm going to come back and we can continue the meeting. I just need like 3 minutes. And they were so nice about it. But I just felt like it was important to acknowledge for, that like this, I'm not just like randomly, this is a thing that happens to many women.
Yep.
And they were great about it. But I felt very much like I belonged, even though it was a room full of people that weren't likely going to have this situation, um, to be able to say that. I just think it's really important. And I think as
Yeah.
leaders, it's really important.
Yeah, and without knowing it, you also created space for the next woman that
Yeah.
is going through that. And
Yeah.
so it's not only important that you feel like you belong, but that you are then blazing that trail for the other people going through that same thing to feel like, oh wow, I just saw the company support that, and
Mhm.
oh, the company is allowing people to bring that into the workplace. My gosh, right? And
Yeah.
that helps that helps culture, that helps other people feel like they belong too. It's really when you can create those moments.
Mhm.
And as HR folks, we do need to advocate for creating those moments and doing that, creating that space. It's huge, huge.
Yeah. And women before us and HR professionals before us of all genders have done that for us. And so,
Yeah,
that's something that we need to continue. So this has
absolutely.
been super fun. I wish we had 4 hours. I wish this
I
was
know. I could keep going.
with Kara. I know people have loved it. It's been fun to see the chat. Everyone, we will send the books out. We also will send a recording out. Bring Kara back. There's votes for a Kara version 2. We're going to do a recap.
I love it.
I love the idea and I'm going to take it. I'm going to see if I can convince Kara to come back. She's fabulous. We do have some great missing chapters coming up. Sonia, I think you're on the call. We're super excited to have you next month. I've known Sonia over a couple different companies and she's fabulous. And then we put all of these up on demand. So um, if you've missed something, we've had some really great speakers, generational stereotypes, AI, dispersed workforces, all these great things. Check them out. We would love to have you watch them. They're really, truly just here to help us have these conversations. And we're thrilled. And Kara talked about finding your people. And I love the idea of starting small groups. I think there's all sorts of great associations and, just groups you build. We have a community. You do not need to be one of our customers. We will not sell to you. This community is not about that. This community is about having a place in Slack. We do in-person meetings. We do special sessions just for the community. Please, please, please join our community. And whether you have your own groups already or not, I think you'll find a really wonderful, it's several hundred now. I think you'll find a group of people um, that are people and that you'll find a lot of belonging in. And so we encourage you to join that. Big thanks to everyone participating. Big thanks to Kara. I'm gonna work on my listening and being a better person thanks to you. And I know a lot of people are too. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day and your week. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Amy. This was great.